I would like to introduce Secretary of Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources, Secretary Ken McQueen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ken McQueen, the Cabinet Secretary for Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department. With me today is my Deputy Cabinet Secretary, Matthias Sayer, and also with me today is our State Forester, Donald Griego. I would like to express my appreciation to Lieutenant Governor John Sanchez, who's here with us today, and to recognize all the interagency partners joining us this morning at the Open Space Visitor Center for a very important Wildfire Awareness Week. The Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department and the State Forestry Division deeply value the relationships we have with our partners. We all have a vested interest in strengthening our partnerships and working toward the common goal of looking for ways to improve our ability to protect our lands from wildfire. This year, more than ever, communication between local, state, federal, and tribal agencies will be critical as we face what could be an extreme fire season. We need to continue to be vigilant and cautious. And now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our Lieutenant Governor, John Sanchez.
Appreciate it very much. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Secretary McQueen, and thank you all for joining us here today. It's my pleasure to be here in Albuquerque with the State Forestry Division and so many of our wonderful interagency partners as we all prepare for another very busy wildfire season here in New Mexico. So on behalf of the state of New Mexico, I want to extend my gratitude to all of the firefighters, men and women from across New Mexico, for their tireless work each and every year to protect our communities from wildfire. I would also like to recognize and thank our state, local, federal, and tribal leadership representatives here this morning, as well as the Cabinet Secretaries and leadership from the New Mexico Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department, New Mexico Environmental Department, New Mexico Department of Veteran Services, New Mexico Corrections Department, New Mexico Department of Health, the New Mexico Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, New Mexico Army National Guard, USDA Service, Bureau of Land Management, and the U.S. Department of the Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs, just to name a few. You see, last year, for the first time in nearly 2 decades, we enjoyed virtually no drought in our state. A total of 370 fires burned more than 33,000 acres on state and private land. Compare that to 2016, when 622 fires burned 118,000 acres and we lost a dozen homes in the Doghead Fire. Conditions have already significantly changed this year in New Mexico. An abnormally dry winter has left our mountains nearly barren, and moderate to extreme drought conditions are nearly covering the entire state. The lack of significant snowpack, paired with strong wind, significantly warmer temperatures, and the abundance of fine fuels make New Mexico increasingly vulnerable to severe wildfire conditions. Now, due to the prolonged dry conditions, the state of New Mexico has been preparing for an early start to wildfire season. Discussions have been taking place and plans set in motion in conjunction with our interagency cooperators. Many new firefighters, including volunteer firefighters, have been training since this fall to better protect their communities. More residents living in wildland-urban interface areas are being proactive and becoming more resistant to wildfire with community-based fire prevention programs, better land management, and working closely with their local fire departments. Still, there will always be much more work to do. Since January 1st of this year, New Mexico firefighters have battled at least 130 wildfires, totaling more than 31,000 acres. Of those wildfires, 66 were simply in this month alone, and more than 90% of them were human-caused. Human-caused wildfires continue to be one of the biggest culprits we face in our state. So I urge all New Mexicans and visitors to take the challenge to protect themselves, their family, property, wildlife, our precious watersheds, and the many other natural resources we all love and enjoy here in the land of enchantment. Prevention and preparedness must be a year-round responsibility. Fire does not remember names, recognize faces, nor understand the plight of those it destroys in its path. We've seen it firsthand at the Cerro Grande, the Scott Abel, the Trigo, Los Conchas, Little Bear, Doghead, and Tiburon. Hundreds of homes were lost, and lives were changed forever. So I'm telling you, it could happen again. We must always be mindful about how our actions could impact us now, and more importantly, for generations to come. So today, as we recognize Wildfire Awareness Week in New Mexico, we must remember that when it comes to wildfires, it's not a matter of if, but when. So we're asking everybody to prepare now. Thank you for being here today, and God bless you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Sanchez. Good morning, everybody. I'm Donald Griego, the State Forester for New Mexico State Forestry Division. We appreciate you joining us this morning to commemorate Wildfire Awareness Week in New Mexico. I'd also like to express my gratitude for all of our partners here in the fire service. I'd also like to thank Susana Martinez, Lieutenant Governor John Sanchez, and Secretary Ken McQueen for their continued support of the Forestry Division. Right now, most of New Mexico is in high fire danger, and we are expecting a very active season. In fact, we are already seeing the effects of prolonged drought and dry conditions. I would like to thank all of our response agencies, especially the fire departments from across the state who have been actively responding to fires. The State Forestry Division is more proactive than ever in collaborating with local, state, federal, and tribal partners to facilitate projects on private and public land to reduce hazardous fuels around communities and protecting forest and watersheds. These continued efforts will ensure a bright future of these vital areas for future generations. Of course, we can't do it alone, and we encourage all New Mexicans to do their part to prepare for wildfire. This underlines the importance of New Mexicans working together with their local fire departments and local leaders to ensure the safety of our communities and especially our families. We strongly urge everyone to be mindful of the dry conditions in our state. Be prepared this year and every year. Next, I'd like to introduce the Mayor of Albuquerque, Tim Keller. Oh,
Okay.
Sorry.
okay.
The mayor is delayed. We will come back to.
So I'd like to introduce the Bureau of Land Management Acting State Director, Aiden Seidlitz.
Thank you, Don, and good morning, everybody. I'd just like to say, as far as this interagency partnership, there are many projects that we can join with our state and local and tribal governments to accomplish great things, but none more important than this one related to fire and especially fire safety. We spend a lot of time as an interagency community in training our folks, make sure everybody comes home safely, but also in educating homeowners and et cetera to prepare for the wildfire season and to do all they can that they can protect. And as an interagency community here in New Mexico, I believe we do a great job in doing that. But as was mentioned earlier, always a lot more work to do and improvements that can be made. As mentioned, we're looking at potentially a severe fire season, especially for our lands out there. In a wind event, they can spread very quickly. So I think it's important, again, during events and even before events, that we continue to build this relationship and to communicate and communicate and communicate. With social media these days, there are many avenues for information to get out there. Some of it is accurate, but there's also a lot of misinformation that's taken at face value. And I don't think as agency partners we can react fast enough to misinformation to make sure we get the true information out there and to make sure we do everything we can to save lives, property, and our natural resources that we all enjoy. The one thing not mentioned so far that I would like to mention, that again we need to communicate far and wide, and we need the media's help with this, is the use of unauthorized drones when we do have a fire event. If we have that situation occur when they're flying, we can't fly as far as our fire retardant planes and et cetera, and helicopters to assess the situation. So it's very critical that when we have an event that folks understand that and stay away. Of course, public information throughout the fire season and even before, there's a lot of information on our New Mexico fireinfo.com interagency website, so definitely want to use that. Last but not least, I just want to say thanks to our federal and state, local and tribal partners for all that everybody does to protect the public and the natural resources that we all enjoy. And I certainly look forward to continuing this productive partnership and to a very safe fire season. And again, thank you for this opportunity.
Good morning, I'm Chrisita Foya. I'm the Director of New Mexico State Parks. I'm very happy to be here today with all of our partners to promote fire safety throughout the state. We have 34 beautiful parks all across the state, and all of our partnerships help to keep those resources safe and beautiful for our visitors. We've got a lot of events and a lot of great things that are happening this spring and summer, and invite everybody to come out. But I'd like to echo what many folks have said here today, that we really need to be vigilant. Before our visitors come out to our New Mexico State Parks, we encourage them to go to nmparks.com to learn about our fire restrictions. We have a great fire restrictions webpage that can let you know where there are restrictions at our parks and where you can have safe fires. We really encourage our visitors to use designated grills and to watch their fires in those designated areas, because it's really critical to have safe campgrounds. I was actually at a state park last year where we had a human caused fire in a campground, and it can happen in an instant, and it's really, really scary. So it's really important for folks to be vigilant and to learn more before they're coming out into our New Mexico State Parks. So we invite you to come out to our parks, but we really want you to be safe and provide a safe atmosphere for all of our visitors. Thank you.
Proclamation.
I will now read this year's proclamation for Wildfire Awareness Week, and this is going to be done by Cody Crane, an Eagle Scout candidate from Rio Rancho Troop 2010, and we'll have Smokey out here accompanying him. So.
Whereas New Mexico is experiencing a winter with below normal precipitation, wind, seasonally higher than normal temperatures, and an abundance of fine fuels, making wildland areas across the state increasingly vulnerable to severe wildfire conditions, and whereas readily available fuel loads in our forests and grasslands create an imminent threat of wildfire that may challenge New Mexico's efforts to provide public safety, protect property, and protect our watersheds and other natural resources, and whereas many wildland fires are human-caused and are therefore preventable, whereas New Mexicans and visitors who live, work, and recreate in wild areas throughout our state must recognize the considerable risk of wildfire and take every precaution to protect themselves, property, and our natural resources. And whereas residents of wildland urban interface communities exposed to high fire risk play a key role in helping to prevent the loss of life and property from wildland fire by incorporating fire-adapted community principles, and whereas a coordinated fire prevention and initial attack effort between local, state, federal, and tribal agencies is essential in reducing the wildfire risk to people, property, wildlife, environment, and our economy. Now therefore I, Susana Martinez, Governor of the State of New Mexico, do hereby proclaim March 25th through March 31st, 2018 as New Mexico Wildfire Awareness Week. And throughout the state of New Mexico and in alliance with the state of Arizona, I call upon all New Mexicans to join me in taking the personal responsibility in preventing wildfires. Remember, wildfires will happen. It is not a matter of if, but when. Prepare now.
Okay, Mayor Tim Keller, Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller is here now. He's got a few words to say for you as well. Come on up, Mr. Keller.
Smokey, good to see you. All right, well, thank you all for coming out. It's also, I appreciate our Boy Scout reading the proclamation. I was Troop 280. Hang in there, you almost got your eagle. Welcome everyone, of course, to one of our most beautiful open space facilities here in the city of Albuquerque. I do want to acknowledge a couple of folks. I think they might have been introduced already, but just in case, our Fire Chief Dow right here. Also, Dave Simon, our Parks and Rec Director. He's new, give us a wave. But I think everyone here who's worked in this world already is familiar with him and his background. And also Jim Sattler, who runs the Open Space Project. Jim back there in the back. Thank you, Jim. A couple of things from the city of Albuquerque's perspective this morning. Firstly, we have over 30,000 acres of major public space and miles of forest running through the heart of our city. That is one of the most unique things of any major city in America. It's something we're very proud of, but it's something that also is at high risk every time we get near fire season. And so all of these agencies here behind me are working together because unfortunately fire season is here and it started early, and firefighters across our city and state are gearing up for what we think is going to be a very tough summer. Also, the beautiful temperature we have today and the winds, of course, the winds actually are terrible for fires. So this is actually one of the most high-risk situations that we have when the winds pick up and the weather is still warm and everything is still this dry. So while our firefighters and Open Space Division do a great job looking out for the bosky and open space areas, they can't be everywhere at once. That's why we need everyone to come together as one city to do what we can to prevent wildfires. Early detection can be the difference between a small fire or a large-scale fire, which unfortunately our city has experienced, of course, many times before in the bosky. So we've deployed our crews and they're looking to reduce dozens of wildfires as they occur, but we are also working to clear out as much brush and undercoverage as we can to reduce the amount of fuel and tinder available for fires in the first place. That's something that is an active project that we're working on before. There's about an April 20th date with respect to migratory birds, so we have to get all of that done before then. And so our Parks and Rec Department and our Fire Department are meeting to figure out how to actually deal with as much of that underbrush as we can before then. Now, we need the public's help in dealing with this, and I think that's the most important reason why I wanted to come here today, because preventing these fires from spreading is really all of our challenges. And so we need folks to accept that responsibility. So if you see a wildfire, first leave the area, then call 911. And try and keep your home, especially if you live near the bosky, free of trees and shrubs around your home and around electrical wires and chimneys. And also absolutely follow the restrictions when it comes to no fires in the bosky, no camping in the bosky, no fireworks in the bosky. These are all things that are very, very important that we have to remember. And so please report anyone you see who might be violating those restrictions. Now, also, of course, want to remind folks these are now very serious offenses in Albuquerque that can result in fines and jail time if you get caught. So if you see any non-emergency activity like that, please call 242-COPS. And so we hope we are going to have a safe and fun summer and as few wildfires as possible in the bosky this year, but we need everyone's help to make that happen. Thank you very much.